Hi, and welcome to this podcast, Donna. It's such a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. For our guests, would you like to give us a brief introduction?
Yes, sure. As you know, my name is Dorna. I am 30 and I work in HR in a company, and I'm currently living in Iran. Um, I don't know what else I can tell you. Could you please give me some
Yeah,
ideas?
no issues. You did mention briefly that you're connected with human resources as a field of activity. Um, how
Uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah.
because your job entails dealing with different kinds of human beings. There's a lot of pressure in terms of when you're hiring them, meeting up to their expectations, communicating what your company policies are. Sometimes also dealing with some nasty things. Human beings are human
Mm-hmm.
beings. They may not see eye to eye on certain things. So when you see this
Mm-hmm.
collective humanity, uh,
Mm-hmm.
what is your learning as a human being? More than a HR person, how does your job help you see yourself or see human beings?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, my particular job in HR is in talent acquisition, and I try to recruit and hire people for the company, and I try to help the process. And I first when I was new in this position, it was really difficult for me to identify the person and their abilities separately, because it is important to value a person aside of their abilities and experiences and their resume. And sometimes we see many hundreds, if not thousands, hundreds of resume in our job, and we judge people by their resumes. And sometimes if you let it go, if you do not be aware and conscious about this process, maybe you will forget that you have to see people uh, as they are, not what is said in their resumes, and value them and say yes to this one, no to this one. It is a very challenging, actually, uh, part of my job.
Okay, this is very interesting because I'll give you a perspective from the other side. Very often, because of my seniority in terms of age and professional experience, uh, there are friends who are younger who are going for interviews or trying to get jobs. It's a very nervous time for everyone at any position they are when they are going and meeting a prospective employer or a partnership or any kind of deal where they are also wanting to sell their own best uh, perspective. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things I have told them that look, nobody can judge you as best as you can.
Yes,
So whatever you
exactly.
project is how they will buy into you. So with your
Definitely.
words as well as with your body language, with the words that you use to describe yourself, your work process, your
Mm-hmm.
worldview, whatever it is, depending upon obviously what the job is. And this is a secret that I would let out. Most of the time I tell them, go and behave in a manner that you do not want the job.
Mm.
It's a very
How
strong,
come?
um, because the nervousness is going to be there. You cannot deny that even if you are coming on, you've been, we've been speaking for last 1 or 2 weeks and you are supposed to come on the podcast. This is not a formal engagement. We are both trying to just help the world. in whatever limited way we can, just sharing our thoughts so that people out there can know there are other people facing similar difficulties that they are. And yet there is a sense of nervousness that you would have felt, okay, I do not know what am I getting into. It might be milder in comparison because there is nothing to get out of it. But in a formal interview, when you're going for a job or when you have some element of quote unquote greed that you would want, that kind of brings with itself some kind of flutterings of the mind which are not good, or maybe sometimes in the stomach if you're too anxious. My idea is see, as it is, it's not a one-day thing. I may con you and get the job. And it might work for a little while, say 2 weeks. If I'm a very good actor, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, at some point I'll get caught.
Exactly.
So one has to stop worrying about this one day in particular. And the only way you can stop worrying is when you decide to tell your mind, look, I don't care, I won't get the job. When you made peace with the worst part of the scenario, you're just sitting here and talking person to person. You're trying to do justice to what you know. Because that is what will be useful after the first interview. After you get hired, sorry. Once you get onto the job, suppose I'm an advertising person. I'm an advertising consultant to few clients and other agencies, event companies. So finally, once I've got the job or the contract and you're paying me what I want, I've decided the number of hours or whatever I'm going to give you. After that, the first judgment will happen when you give me the job. It doesn't matter what I spoke in my interview or how good I was or how, because you judge me, yeah, these lines are working, these lines are not working. Am I getting your brief right? So finally, it's work that speaks for itself. And we have, for whatever little time that we've spent, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or even say 20 years, 25 years, in my case, you still need to work to deliver. Whether through methodology or my job is creative, so I have to think new things every time, novel things, novel ways of communication. But still the job is the same. You have to keep doing work and proving your work with every line. Are you aware of a game called cricket?
I'm not that familiar with that, but I just know it.
Okay, and there is been a very famous batsman called Sachin Tendulkar. He's an Indian and he's been a world famous cricketer. So at one point he had said a lovely line. He says, even if I score a century in my last match, in this match I have to start on zero. So however good you are in your interview, or however worried I am about my interview, or even if I'm lying or saying the truth, that is a separate matter. Personally, I think lying has its own sense of burden. This morning I was speaking to a relative of mine and she was talking about some money that is stuck with somebody. She's been lying to get her money back. She says, I hate it, but I do not know. If I say the truth, that person may not return my money. And it's a lot of money. So I keep lying and she says, I have to keep on remembering these lies. This is such a painful thing. I hate it, but there's nothing I seem to do about it. So these are little things that over a period we all learn through life experiences. So that is my answer to why be fearless. Because anyway, it doesn't matter. Whether I get the interview right is only one part of the process. And one thing that I liked about what you said, and that's where my next question is coming from, is that you try and evaluate the human being away from the talent set or skill set. Because finally, it's also the human being who's going to work. I may be the most talented person, but if I'm not a good team member and I've had clients, I've been hired on jobs sometimes because the client is quite rude. So I've been called in just to pacify the client, like, no need to be rude, we'll deliver. That's it, not even for my work. Just so that peace is kept between the client and the agency. And
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
on the first meeting itself, I felt, what kind of lady? How can you talk like this? But this keeps on happening. So my question to you, how do you do this? How do you segregate from a resume what is the human being and what is the skill set or talent
Mhm,
that you're looking at?
mhm, mhm. Actually, we have many methods to identify a good hiring for ourselves and for the company. And we have studied that. Maybe if we have had a university degree, or maybe if we ever have been under a mentorship, we learned that we have some clues and a checklist actually to know whether the person is a fit for the position and for the culture of the company or not. And these actually could be a very, very vast and different items, from how a person is reacting to our questions and how is their behavior. If we check if we can make them intolerant, impatient, to see how they will react, or maybe ask them about their past experiences when they have become very angry, and see how they have reacted through that situation, and if they have managed to control themselves or maybe fix the situation. And most of all, beside the technical competencies that will be checked by our technical hiring team, we as HR make a HR interview with those candidates and check the things that I said, because we need people to be team players. We need people to be able to manage their times. And also, beside all of them, I want to say, as I have experienced it myself, I will tell you about it in a few minutes, that sometimes maybe people are not good at managing their time. They are not good at having a principle and keeping track of what they're doing, or maybe some of the soft skills that you might think. And by going through the interview and by going through to talking to them, you might understand that yes, this person does not have this quality that I want them to have, but maybe if I give them a chance, I will learn, they will learn about that. And this is the difference between when I'm saying that you need to separate the human itself from their competencies and their skills, is giving them a chance. And even if that person is not qualified for our position and is not a good fit, although we have to respect them because they are a human being. And sometimes I have seen in this field that when we reject a person, for example, for some positions, we see them as a underqualified personality, not just by their skill sets. Yes, and they will be degraded from the respect that we have to give them. And this has even affected my own personal life. And because I remember my previous job, the previous company that I was working, the culture, the environment maybe, or I myself, because I was going through a very bad phase of my life, and I was kind of depressed, and I had no energy to work on myself to get better at my work. And I see that people did not see me as a person who is going through something and maybe needs some time, or maybe needs some motivation or admiration, maybe to get better, to find themselves, to find the energy to work again on themselves, and getting better at their jobs. And people got disappointed in me very fast, very fast. And I just stopped working there. I went and find another job, the job that I'm currently working. And I understood a lot of that experience. And also when I was interviewing for my next job, I saw that people exactly, they are looking at people like objects, like robots, machines, just doing the work. But we are human beings. We have many dimensions. And as colleagues and as a company, we need to see that if a person is going through a rough time in their lives, they might just need just a little help. Maybe they just need a little bit of motivation and understanding. And yeah, that was my experience actually, and it taught me a big deal.
It's quite beautiful. I want to bring an aspect here. See, you are from the HR community. It is your job to evaluate human beings. Well, human beings, because obviously people working in your company are from our.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm trying to say is that part didn't really teach you as much as your own experience honed the aspect of what it means not to be respected, uh, not to be uh, not to be judged when you are at your vulnerable most. Just to pause for a bit and say, let's see what happens. Let's see. Being patient with people who are not working at their optimum, for whatever their reasons at some point of time.
Exactly.
How do you deal with people who take rejection very badly? Because it's part of your job, and I find that it must be one of the toughest things to say no to a person if they've come to speak to you. Very few times it happens that people just pitch and get the letter and get out. But I'm saying one of you at one point, if not both of you, are invested in the process. You are giving time, you're working, you're communicating, you're figuring out logistics of how to make that job come about. So when a person says no, either to you or else you say no to the person when they have to be given communication from your company in a certain manner. How do you deal with those people who are negative about their rejection?
Yeah. Actually, I have seen some of these problems, issues. Sometimes people maybe ask for feedback. That's a easy thing to do. We will give them the feedback and we will say, for example, for this reason and this reason, we need these exact competencies in this position, and that's what, and you are not as strong as we want in these specific parts. So we decided to go forward with another candidate. That's logical and people will accept it. But sometimes, especially when we are rejecting people because they are not a good culture fit, or maybe maybe all those people who are rejected in the HR interviews. That's a very difficult part to deal with, because we cannot go to them and say, okay, we think you lied to us in the interview and that's why you got rejected. that we cannot be that much direct to them. We just try to talk to them and let them know that we value them, and at the same time, currently we cannot work with them. But sometimes I have seen only one person, one candidate who did not accept this process, and even though we talked to them and tried to calm them down, that person went to social media and went to LinkedIn and posted a very aggressive text about us, comments about us, that how he is not satisfied with the process and with the people. And at some points, that's a decision, because it's getting very serious. And at this point, we cannot separately decide how to react. We have to go to our manager, and the manager decides, and we talk to each other, and the manager decides if we need to even respond or not. Sometimes we do not even respond to their comments, because because we see that this person just wants to argue. Whatever we say, he wants to still continue arguing, and he doesn't accept our reasoning. So these times, as you know, maybe this is better to keep quiet and let that person have that storm that they are having, and we cannot do anything else. But many times we try to just go talk reason with them.
Okay, there is this thought that ran in my head. This is like life, literally. That you've been very specific about making it a role kind of thing or a job kind of thing. And you've discussed in threadbare detail the various emotions you go through on the other side, where you have to hire or fire or withhold certain information or communicate certain information. It's quite a few tugs and pulls of being a human being to start with, more than a HR person as well, because you do not want to be nasty to anyone, and you understand that we are all working, you're being paid for it because you're working, the other person has come with the same expectation. So that was one of the things that crossed my mind, that even in life, we, whether it is relationships, business or personal, there are many times that you go through these kind of things. What has to be said? How much do you hold back? There is a lot of calculation one has to do.
Yes. Yes.
Connecting with that is the question: how has your job learnings affected your personal life? These are valuable learnings where you are learning the qualities of patience, perseverance in terms of holding on to a person, allowing them to change. Values like obviously timeliness of their delivery schedules, their promises, the way they fit into the culture. When we say culture, it may seem like very loose and a big term, but culture is basic decency between human beings of sorts in a certain manner. We could have different ways of communicating it. Some people may like saying please, other people who are more raw may say there's no need to say please, we are already close, so we have that kind of bond that we can directly get to the matter. So both of them are equally fine. Those are just nuances. But the basic understanding of, holding on to human decency, relationships, the other pulls and pushes and provocations that happen. How do you think your job has helped you in your own personal space?
Yeah, very much. Actually, I'm learning, and I'm bringing my life to my work, and I'm bringing my work experience to my life, actually, both of that. It has helped me to be a more patient person, as you said, and it has helped me to actually, especially as I told you, we do the HR interviews, and the competencies that we check. For example, for the person who's not a lawyer, we don't want a lawyer in our company, or we don't want a responsible person in our company. The way of identifying, the way of questioning that person has helped me to identify in the very first early stages of my friendships with people. It has helped me to see better if that person is really a responsible person, a really honest person maybe, or a person who trusts and can be trusted, actually, because these are also very important facts. Things in a friendship.
I think
Yeah.
there's one example that comes to mind. I was unaware of these things, unaware in the sense because one does not see it as a topic of interest. It doesn't really um, fall in the scope of my work most times. I have not been like I have not reached a place as a senior in most organizations where I've had to handle teams and stuff like that. More of a free bird consultant kind of thing most of the time in the most of my 25 years that I've spent in the industry. But within that, on and off certain places which I've been consulting, I've been supposed to help them with hiring juniors who do everyday work. So one particular example that comes to mind in one of my clients' places, I had interviewed two people on the same day. One of them was brilliant. The second was substandard in talent, but very good person. This guy who was brilliant was very loner kind of person who was very uh, impatient with getting things done. He was very good at it and he expected the same. There's nothing wrong with it. Obviously, it's just a trait that helped him be brilliant because that's the kind of, in creative, this is a very important aspect. In other jobs, perhaps a little more steady kind of people are looked at. In creatives, you generally land up looking for those quirky ones, people who are a little nasty sometimes, but do great work. So you're okay if they are working solo. Then it's not really a problem because you just go to them, you calculate that thing that these guys are going to trouble me. But when they come up with work, you are willing to forgive them everything because their work is brilliant. So that's the calculation, that's the nature of the job. I was very happy with the talented person and I said, this guy is brilliant. So that's when the boss who was running that show for that company, she ended up telling me, look, but he will not stay beyond 2 months. He will not like us. Forget we liking him or not. He will not stay around because he doesn't fit the culture. I was a little disappointed because that was the kind of work I wanted to see. She said, look, I understand. His work is brilliant. His portfolio shows that he can crack all kinds of things. The other guy is okay. He's substandard. But he is a guy who will stay.
Exactly.
So we should opt for him. And truth be told, I was actually quite unhappy about it for 10 days or so. But not that it affected my job per se. But I generally, when you're a consultant and you're dealing with one person in the team, so you want that person to be relied upon. So people who are not great at their jobs sometimes land up making mistakes which are fairly basic. So I did not like going back and correcting those because that was a huge waste of time. But over a period of time, I found uses for myself as well in that guy. Because that guy could be trusted if I had to find out, okay, why was my invoice not cleared or something like that. He would go and follow up with the accounts because he looked up to me. He was quite respectful. So all those things were very good. But with work, I had to put in extra effort with him in trying to make him understand basics. Look, this is how it works. So for example, as a writer, he used to love using big words which meant nothing. So I had to tell him, no, it has to be worked the other way around. The big word is unimportant. It's good to know those words, but first you have to have the meaning in your mind and then come up with the word. You're working it the other way around. So that took a bit of time. He did improve also. But funnily enough, there is a question I want to ask you. He improved after he quit and he was not in touch. He just one day got up and vanished and he was not in touch with anyone. All of us were surprised. But he started talking to me after 6 months after that and kind of explained something which I really didn't buy into. But I realized he had gone through some kind of soul searching and it was a difficult period for him. And his writing had improved suddenly. And I was he was sharing some work and I said, oh, suddenly this guy seems to be writing better. He was never doing this when I was trying to teach him these same things. So my question to you, I find grief or sorrow of some kind or rejection or dejection or any kind of experience that does not live up to our circumstances seems to help a lot in growth. One, do you agree? And two, if you agree, do you use this kind of knowledge to help communicate with people when they are going through bad times at work?
Yeah, yeah. That's a very difficult, I guess, question because, yeah, I have done some kinds of soul searching in my life, and I'm still doing that. And there is this term that most psychologists, especially Jungian psychologists, use. They say there is a shadow of us, all the things that we have denied, all the abilities or features of ourselves that we have denied and put aside. They have somehow we have put them in the shadows, and they have gained a power over us. And if yeah, and if we go and get friends with that shadow, we might be able to use that as a force to improve, not as a force to get worse. I mean, to resist, because shadow is something that resists and fights us actually. And we all put energy to deny them and put energy to just forget about them. Bad experiences such as grief, whatever that you can say, maybe some childhood traumas and experiences can be also a shadow. And I remember when I was reading a book about shadows, they said if for example, let me give you an example. For example, when you were a child, your teacher told you you never will become a good at math. You're no good use. You're not intellectual. You know nothing, and that will be a powerful force, because when I grow up, I become a very talented mathematics. And then I will go to my teacher. I will think with myself, because because of that teacher, because she or he told me I will never be anything good. I want to become something good, someone good. And I will go tell them, did you see, now I'm a very successful people, and what you said was wrong. So that's a useful mechanism, I guess, because it will help you to become a better person. But when I was reading about this, when I was getting to know about how you can use your shadows as a force, I realized, but if I become peaceful with what my teacher said at that time, if I just forgave my teacher and I just did not give value, too much value to what she said, I would have never become such a successful mathematician, but I would have never, I would have felt that peace in myself. Because if you imagine, if I was struggling to become someone just because another person said I'll never become that someone, that's a constant fight in me, constant struggle in me. And what you said got me thinking and reminded me actually these concepts of shadows. Because if I use my grief or use my bad experiences as a force, maybe that would be helpful. But isn't it an extra struggle? I just should make peace with everything. If I do that, I will be a more peaceful person. So I guess everything will have a better harmony. I'm not sure if I gave a right answer. I mean, I'm not
And
sure if
there is an additional part of the question. I'll come to that, but I want to
I.
share an experience that I went through. One of my, we were a couple of friends together. One of us was quite categorically strong. We all looked up to him in terms of language, in terms of how he conducted himself. So he had told me that I would never become a successful writer. But I never saw it as negative. I said, yeah, this is good what you're thinking. The problem is that I want to become a writer. There's nothing else. Like it's for my happiness, I'm becoming a writer. Successful or not will happen. And I think I'll be reasonably okay. And funnily enough, one of the things that I've learned over the years is I'm sometimes very good as a writer. Sometimes I'm not. And that person was right. When I'm not, I'm actually quite, I don't get the hang of it, or I'm not interested, or I'm not going to the depth of what is a possibility for whatever my reasons. But there are certain aspects of me which flower in conditions when my mind is happy and I write so well, and it motivates people. It like this, the values workshop is a individual initiative, and it's been helped by people who taught me a bit of editing and whatever that I've been doing. But more or less, many of these days I'm alone. Like there are weeks I'm actually asking, do you have time? Do you have time today, tomorrow? Because every Saturday I need to put up an episode.
Yes.
On a bad day, I sometimes wonder, should I give it up? Enough, 200 episodes or whatever have happened. Now people can take what they want. But on a really bad day, something or the other will prompt. Things happen on their own. I did a talk which was put up last week. We talked about happenstance. And happenstance is just things just happen the way they are supposed to happen. And I cannot really claim credit for them. There's this sense of things falling in place on their own, where I do not actually do everything. Certain things, you just arrive at the right place at the right time with the right intention and give what you can. In fact, if I were to go back to that question that you asked, why do I ask people to not want the job when they are going for the interview? It's not negative. It's about being free of the result part of it. And it is, I've spoken to you, I'm coming there. But the result is definitely in your hands, not mine. Or else maybe later mine when you make me an offer that I feel is not what I wanted. So those things can happen. But still it's unhappiness of a certain kind. But when I've let go of the expectation itself, then I'm free of that whole thing. So my question was, to go back to what you said, that was a lovely answer you gave. I did not expect it, but it was a fairly detailed answer. It was very good because it covers the mind spaces that one goes through in this learning. What I meant was, do you feed this learning back into your practice of being an HR manager? So if a person is really going through a bad time, and you suppose your company does allow you the leverage that yes, we can, he's not being paid so much salary that it's a burden and we need to calculate every month. But we can give him time or just check it out what is happening. So how do you bring this compassion or this learning of okay, maybe there are other issues? Do you bring up personal issues of people? Do you make them sit and ask them if there is something bothering them outside work? Do these kind of things happen?
Yes, exactly. Actually, I can say there is one division in HR that is focused on the learning and the development of the employees. This division can help a person whenever, if a person is going through a rough time, first of all, we might go and talk to them and ask them what is wrong and how we can help them. If they are going through personal crisis or a mental crisis, we will be able to help them. Actually, and this depends on the company and how much they let us to be compassionate, actually.
Yeah.
I myself would love to give a person as much time as they need to recover, but sometimes it's a business, and sometimes we cannot do that. So we try to, for example, if in early stages we might be able to give them some extra days off to maybe go and just rest a little bit, or maybe introduce them to consultants that might help them. And we will tell them that it is important for us for the person to feel good and to get better. But to be honest, in the business, it is not professional to bring personal crisis into the work, to your work. And I personally, I don't agree with it, as I told you my own experience, because that experience made me think and rethink if it's a good idea to just divide people, their life, their daily lives from their daily work
life.
And work life. And just these are the ways that we try to suggest to the person. And if they are just lacking some skills, or they need to get better at their work actually, and they need to learn maybe some hard skills, the learning and development division would help them, for example, by supporting them to get into a class maybe, or introducing them to some courses or stuff like this, or even maybe choosing another employee as a mentor for them to just help them get better at their work and at their those type of qualifications. So that's what we can do. But this is something that sometimes I feel a little bit disappointed in HR actually. This is the reason that sometimes even I ask myself, if we see people as just some
resources.
puzzle. We don't see people as real human beings who needs to be cared for. And this makes me disappointed in my job actually. Sometimes I do my best to help, but sometimes I cannot.
That's a tricky one for me to comment on also, but something interesting that I remember, which is a parallel, not necessarily a professional setup. I had the good fortune to meet a old friend that I had not spoken to for many years now actually. So we spent some time together. I had gone out of town and suddenly he was also in the same space. So we kind of met up. He said he was doing some work with people, training them how to take care of senior citizens. And he said a very interesting thing. He says, even if you provide for all their material needs, like food, shelter, for your parents, for your uncles, aunties, whoever, the one thing that they need is purpose. Nobody wants to know about their experience. Nobody wants to listen to them, talk about what they know in life. They have a whole set of knowledge within them, but which is just being wasted because the world does not invest in them anymore. And then I asked him, so what can be done or what should be done? Because it's a big problem, but I don't see an easy solution. We are all, as comparatively young people, we are all running to solve our own problems most of the time, or not create most of the time, actually is a better word, because we are quite capable of creating a mess, whatever we touch, is my experience. So he said, actually, the only thing that is required is acknowledgement. You just sit with them, talk to them once a while, take them for a walk, just be with them and acknowledge. So I remember that there is this, there are a couple of people, old people in my building, and after this chat, before this chat as well, I used to talk nicely to them. I felt very strongly about them being self-sufficient. So they have knee problems or some other problems. So when I see them on a walk, I say, "Oh, so good to see you, auntie. It's wonderful to see you, uncle. Why don't you come down more often?" So one of the very old people, he said, "Oh, I had a fall and I feel very fearful." So I said, "Uncle, remember the Chinese saying? They say you fall down 99 times, you get up 100 times. So all you need to do is just get up one time extra. You come down. If you want, I'll sit and sip tea with you and talk to you, but you must make an effort." Unfortunately, I am also unable to, go to his house, get him along and go down. Maybe today while talking to you, once in a while I can do it. I don't need to do it very often, but at least once in a while I should make the effort, I think. But I do talk nicely to them and bring out the aspect of confidence. And so I asked him, I said, "So that lady, there was another lady with a similar problem. She went and told her family." He was saying, "It's so good to see you." He said, "That's exactly what you did. You just acknowledged that what you're doing is important." And just to cover the negative side of it, he said, "It's so bad that sometimes they don't feel like waking up in the morning. There's no purpose to my life. Nobody cares if I live or die." And that is what actually hit me very badly. I thought that's how life is for all of us at this point of time. Senior citizens obviously are facing the brunt of it in a different manner. The people that you spoke of, people who are being rejected, or what experience you went through at one of your earlier jobs when you were working and trying to get things organized, but just didn't have the willpower because of your personal scenario. You cannot cut and slice things. This is me, this is professional me, this is personal me. It doesn't work like that. We are human beings. So yeah. So what tends to happen is these little things of acknowledgement. I think at some point when you're feeling this sense of we are not being human enough to acknowledge the problem of the other person because it's a business. I think one of the things that I have tried to do is, even when I have to reject people or go and talk to them, I talk to them like human beings. Instead of, you have to say no. There's no chance. They keep on pleading sometimes, "Sir, let me tell you," or whatever. That you cannot. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the business. But it doesn't take away. So you tell them their good things, remind them, "Look, these are good things, or these are good companies you can go to. These are other people that you can speak to who will help get you a job." Or else if you are in the capability to get them I think in your case, you shouldn't do any of that because you are an HR person. They will misunderstand that the company is offering this. So you represent the company, you are in a difficult space. But these are things that can definitely be done. You can always be kind, because that is one thing we all need. Forget doing it to the other person. This is what we need. It kind of keeps us sane, I think. So it's been a remarkably good chat with you. We've covered a lot of ground in terms of values, like I think basic human values. I don't even want to get into that. This is the word that I think is basic human: respect, love, acknowledgement. We've discussed grief, sorrow, things that touch all of us, and how we struggle to deal with personal or at business or at work, any kind of thing. But sometimes it keeps happening, and you can empathize even if you cannot give them what they want in that space. I think for all of us, that's a good lesson. So from human resources to life, thank you so much to guiding us in very little things. One doesn't realize, most of the times HR are the culprits for everything that the company is doing to you. So you are the villains in our heads. I've been there, but luckily I have befriended most of my co-workers, HR being one of them, obviously. Thank you so much for spending time with us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for asking these very good questions. Yeah, they got me thinking even. It was a good food for thought, actually.
Thank you. I'll see you around.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good.